At a big box store entrance, a manager humiliates an older greeter by yanking off his belt and demanding a public search. An assistant manager in training steps in, shields him with her own hoodie, and pays the immediate price of suspension. Quiet aftercare and a small reveal about the greeter's probation appointment reframe the stakes, leading to subtle, lasting changes at the store. Before we get started, tap like, share, and subscribe to join the journey. And tell me, where in the world are you watching? Drop your country below. I love seeing the global trail of these stories. He yanked the belt out of the loops and held it up like a prize fish. The old man grabbed his sagging pants with both hands as the security wand squealed at his waist. People at the sliding doors stalled with carts, the registers kept beeping like a metronome, and the air smelled like hot plastic and popcorn. The manager's voice carried, "Empty your pockets." "Here," the manager said, flicking his fingers at the grey-haired greeter in the blue vest. Breath mints rattled across the floor. A key on an orange tag. A folded paper gone soft at the edges. The man's name badge hung crooked. A kid in a hoodie laughed, then stared at his shoes. Jessa heard the wand squeal from the returns desk. She looked up from a dented coffee maker and saw the belt in the manager's hand, the old man holding his pants like a boy who'd outgrown them. Her headset whispered inventory counts, end cap resets, her training schedule. The man with the belt was her boss. He was also the one who would check the final box on her promotion. Rent was due on Friday. Her mother's insulin picked up at the pharmacy on her employee discounts sat in their fridge. The manager had warned her last week, "Shrink is killing us. The next person who slips, I make an example." She had nodded and kept the returns moving. She stared now. The old man's face was red and wet at the eyes. She stepped out from behind the counter. "I got returns," someone in line protested. She ignored it and walked to the entrance, past the sensor gates with their red blinking lights. Her heart thudded. She took off her navy hoodie and folded it once. "Stop," she said, planting herself between the manager and the greeter. "Off the floor." Now, the manager blinked. He was thick through the neck, clean-shaven, polo tucked tight, wired earpiece trailing. "Jessa, he bypassed bag check twice this morning. We've got loss. He goes through protocol." His eyes flicked at the waiting carts, at the cameras, to her badge. She looked at the greeter. He kept one hand on his pants and stood hunched, like he wanted to disappear into his vest. She lifted the hoodie and wrapped it around his waist with quick hands. "May I?" she asked. He nodded. She tied the sleeves into a knot. The knot held. Customers stared. Someone whispered, "What is this?" A woman in scrubs frowned, then moved her cart to block the view from a teenage boy who had pulled out his phone. "This isn't protocol," Jessa said. Her voice shook once, then leveled. "You don't search a teammate's body on the sales floor. We do that in the office, with HR, or not at all." She stepped backward, keeping herself between the two men. "He's coming with me." The manager's jaw worked. He lifted his chin at the cameras. "We're bleeding, Jessa. Do you think I want this? I've got regional on my neck. We set an example. It's a belt. Calm down." He gestured with the belt still in his hand. It swung and thumped against his leg. "Back to your counter." She touched her radio. "Front end, close lane 1, she said, not breaking eye contact. "Please and thank you." She grabbed the laminated sign and set it sideways on the empty register so it read lane closed to the crowd. The line peeled off to the next cashier. A ripple of mutters followed. The old man shifted, the hoodie knot holding his trousers above his knee brace. He had fine white stubble on his cheeks and his hands shook. "I didn't take nothing," he said, soft like he wanted only her to hear it. His breath smelled like peppermint. Jessa held out her palm. "Give me the belt," she said to the manager. Her fingers didn't move. "Now." He stared at her hand. "You really want to do this," he said, quiet the way people get when they've hit a wall and are looking for a door. "If I step back, I lose face. If I don't, I lose you." A dot of sweat ran from his temple to his jaw. She slid her badge off her lanyard and set it on the kiosk by the door. "Then pick," she said, "because we're not doing body searches at the sliding doors next to the popcorn machine." He flinched, like someone behind the camera had said something in his ear. A moment stretched. Then he thrust the belt back at the old man, not unkind, more like he didn't want to be holding it anymore. "Office," he said. "Now, both of you." "Office," Jessa repeated, "after he sits and drinks water." She kept her voice level. "Or suspend me." "Right here." "Your call." "Fine," he snapped. "Suspended. Pending review." He grabbed her badge from the kiosk. "Turn in your keys at the end of your shift." He knew it wasn't the end of her shift. He had to say something that sounded like control, something that put a lid on his panic. "Copy," she said. She smiled tight. "After I walk him to the break room." She angled her body toward the back. The manager didn't move to block them. He looked at the customers, then back to the camera, and lifted his chin like this wasn't spiraling on him. She didn't wait. She touched the old man's elbow, light. "Let's go," she said. He nodded and moved like he had been waiting for permission to move at all. They threaded past TVs showing sunrise beaches, past a pallet of paper towels, down the aisle that always smelled like rubber from the exercise mats. The fluorescent lights hummed. In the break room, a microwave blinked 00, and a vending machine rattled when the cooler kicked on. She pulled out a chair, the kind with one leg shorter than the others, and set it so he could sit without turning his back to the door. He sank down. His hands, liver-spotted and rough, still trembled. She took a paper cup, filled it at the sink, and set it in his palm. "Sip," she said. He sipped. His throat worked. He closed his eyes once and opened them again. "Name's Harlan," he said after a minute, like he should apologize for needing the break room. "I've been here 6 months. Jessa," she said. "I know. I see you wave at kids. They like your stickers." She opened the mini fridge and found a yogurt with no name on it. She set $1 on the table to cover it, tore the foil, and passed it to him with a plastic spoon. He laughed, a small sound. "They think I got candy," he said. "It's just mints." He scratched at the edge of the hoodie knot at his waist and stopped, left it be. On the table he set the things from his pockets. A few mints in a crushed roll, the orange key tag, a pocket knife with a broken tip. The soft paper, unfolded once, then twice. He didn't hide it. It lay there, plain, the stamp at the top, bright red, probation appointment. Today 3:00 p.m. In the margins he had written bus times, arrows pointing to the right one. He didn't say anything about it. He just pushed the spoon through the yogurt and took another sip of water. He looked smaller without his belt, even with a hoodie tied around him, like a man whose edges had been scraped down. Jessa glanced and looked away. "You got time," she said. "It's noon." He nodded, but kept his eyes on the yogurt. She held out her hand. "May I see your knee brace?" He lifted his pant leg a little. The brace was old, and the Velcro was tired. She pressed the strap flat. It stuck again. "Better?" He nodded. Her phone buzzed with a text from the manager. "HR 2 p.m. She clicked the screen dark. "I'll be right back," she said. "Need a belt." She walked fast to clothing, grabbed a plain black belt from the rack, and ripped the plastic loop without waiting for scissors. An associate looked up. "You gotta scan that," he said, but his voice didn't push it. She held it up. "I'll pay at self-check," she said. He shrugged and went back to folding jeans. She paid with her card? Full retail? No discount? The self-check machine spat the receipt with a crunchy sound. She folded the belt under her arm and walked back to the break room the long way, so she didn't pass the front. Harlan had put the mints back in his pocket and was watching the microwave clock. She held up the belt. "Let's thread this," she said. He stood, untied the hoodie knot, and held his pants with both hands again. He turned his back to the door. She didn't look where she didn't need to. She threaded the black strap through the loops, the buckle clicking. It was a small, precise job, like fixing a loose screw. She pulled the strap snug and let it settle. "Thank you," he said, soft enough that the vending machine's rattle almost swallowed it. He tested the buckle with a small tug. The hoodie he folded and set on the chair like something borrowed that he would return. She took the folded paper and slid it back toward him with one knuckle. "You got enough for the bus?" He nodded and patted the money clip thin as a cracker. "I'm good." "Okay," she said. She didn't add anything about what had just happened, because he already knew exactly what had happened. "We're going to walk to HR together, then I'll walk you to the front, and you can go when you need to go." He nodded. He smoothed the blue vest with both palms, flattening imagined wrinkles. He took a peppermint and set it on the table near her dollar. "For the yogurt," he said. She smiled and slid the candy into her pocket. HR was a small office with a glass window that looked out over a pile of clearance candles. The HR rep, a woman with a neat bun and tired eyes, listened without interrupting while Jessa described the entrance, the wand, the belt. The manager stood in the doorway, arms folded tight, a flush high on his cheeks. When Jessa finished, the rep exhaled and clicked her mouse. "Jessa," she said, "we'll review. For now, you're suspended, pending investigation." Her voice was flat, not mean, just procedural. "Got it," Jessa said. She didn't ask about the promotion. She knew the answer by the way the manager wouldn't look at her badge on the desk, the one he'd brought in like a trophy and set there by mistake. She slid the peppermint onto the edge of the rep's keyboard. "For later," she said. The rep blinked, and a small smile tugged. She left it there. Jessa walked Harlan back to the front. They moved slower. The sliding doors hissed. He straightened when he saw the windows. The stool by the greeter podium wasn't there because there never had been one. She pulled a flatbed cart over and parked it behind him so he had something to lean on that wouldn't make anyone look twice. "You okay here?" she asked. He nodded. He looked past her at the strip of sky through the far windows. "Bus stop's 2 blocks, he said, like he was running the route in his head. "I'll make it." "Good," she said. She reached for the lanyard around her neck and then remembered she didn't have one anymore. She looked at the belt she'd bought and decided not to tell him how much it had cost. She would figure it out later. She already knew she would be eating peanut butter for a week. It didn't matter. The belt gleamed dull and steady under the lights, a thin line that kept everything where it belonged. The next week, she came by to pick up her final paycheck, and her hands shook in the elevator. The manager was not at the front. A new sign hung in the break room over the microwave. "No searches on sales floor. See HR." Someone had taped it up inside a plastic sheet protector. Under it, a coffee can with a slot in the lid read, "Stew Fund." Someone had drawn a smiley face, and someone else had crossed it out and drawn a very straight stool, like a blueprint. At the entrance, a grey metal stool sat behind the greeter podium. It looked like it had been borrowed from receiving. Harlan stood with one hand on it, not using it, just keeping it there. His belt was black and nicked now, like he'd worn it to work. He saw her and nodded once. It wasn't a thank you. It was the nod you give someone who knows a thing you don't want to say out loud. 2 of the cashiers she'd trained started saying, "Break," to the greeters every 2 hours, loud enough that anyone could hear. And then they stood at the podium for 5 minutes, so the greeter could sit. A spare belt hung on a hook under the podium, zip-tied to the metal so it wouldn't wander. No one mentioned it. It just sat there, part of the setup, like the hand sanitizer and the sticker roll. Jessa got a job at a shipping store 2 bus stops over, the kind with boxes stacked to the ceiling and a bell that rang when you opened the door. The pay was less, and the hours were weird, but the owner looked her in the eye when he spoke, and the back counter smelled like ink and tape instead of burnt popcorn. On a slow afternoon, rain ticking against the glass, she taped a small cardboard box and wrote "Fragile" across it in block letters. She looked through the window and saw a blue vest at the bus shelter. Harlan stood under the plastic awning, his shoulders relaxed. He tugged at his belt once and then left it alone. He lifted one hand just above his waist and let it hover there, a greeting that could have been meant for anyone. She lifted her hand back. The bell on the shop door rang as a woman came in with a poster tube. The woman smelled like wet wool and coffee. Jessa set the box in a neat stack and reached for the tube. She didn't think about the promotion. She didn't think about the way the manager had looked at the camera when he made his choices. She thought about the knot she'd tied in the hoodie and how it had held. She thought about a stool and a plastic sheet protector and a belt coiled on a hook under a counter, catching the weak afternoon light like a small, steady thing.